As a longtime gamer, there are few games that have shaped me as much as Final Fantasy VII has. This game was the first game that introduced me to storytelling in video games, and it sold me to the franchise forever. As an adult, I did however realize that I might have fanboyed a bit too hard over this game, and I finally played it again with a more critical mind. Sit down in the boat, son, and buckle up, because I'm about to tell you about some flaws in another great game. This time, the game is Final Fantasy VII. And if you stay to the end, you will see a clip of my favorite moment in the game. To do this breakdown, I will judge the game from the three categories story and plot, characters and growth, as well as gameplay and combat. Spoilers, of course. However, since I don't want people to think I'm just another negative hater or a Kefka fanboy, I will start by naming 5 of the things that I really appreciate about the game and why I really think the game is a masterpiece. Starting off with number 1, the great world and character design. The choice of leaving fantasy behind to aim for a more steampunk-like world was a risky move Squaresoft took in a time of normal fantasy games. What sticks out to me is how well the theme fits with classic fantasy and how well designed the characters really are. Everything from Cloud's and Sephiroth's iconic sword to the great Mako cannon seemed to fit the world, and I never really felt that anything was completely out of place, except maybe the cat controlled by a wannabe Tony Stark. Number 2. The antagonists. Many people love to talk about Sephiroth, but I personally feel that there's a lot more to the antagonist of Final Fantasy VII than the last boss. For sure, Sephiroth is cool with his fall from grace to rise above everyone backstory, and he carries the threatening aura of invincibility, but there are so many other villains that help flesh out the story of the game. We have the mandatory evil capitalist in President Shinra, as well as his bootlickers, his revolutionary son hell-bent on taking over his father's company, the mafia-like Turks with the classical "it's only business" attitude, the scary unknown in Genova. Who is really pulling the strings here? The more Kefka-esque evil Professor Hojo, who loves experimenting on living beings and willing to sacrifice anyone to further his own research. Even the dirty misogynistic local gangster Don Corneo fills a role as something unique, and they all blend together well to create a fantastic story. Number 3. The exploration. When it comes to exploration in games, there are some recurring pitfalls that I see over and over again. One is that the game sacrifices pacing and momentum in the story to give exploration. This is very common in open world games where you can take on multiple side quests that are often very story heavy, making you drop the main story to pursue something else. The whole point with a good side quest is that it's just that, a side quest. By that, I mean it should feel like something you can do while still on the main quest, or something that will take a short detour but still is related somehow to the final objective. Another pitfall is that too many quest lines and minigames have crappy rewards, which will make the exploration seem pointless. Final Fantasy VII doesn't have these issues though. The rewards for exploring are great, and it makes you want to check out each corner of the game. Same goes for the many minigames that will make it worth the effort. And the best part of it all is that you never really feel like you're sacrificing any momentum of the main quest, since the exploration is integrated in such an excellent way. Good stuff. Number 4. Aerith. The most obvious one. No matter how much you like Tifa, Aerith is the main force driving the story forward for most part of the game. Her whole personality stays a mystery for big parts of the story, to the point where you sometimes just wish she would start telling you what is going on, instead of playing these riddles with you. However, by the end, it always feels like she had a good reason for what she did, and that she somehow knew the role she had to play. From a story perspective, she also exposes the player's mortality, and it will make you understand the stakes of the story. Number 5. The huge improvement in dialogue. Lastly, Final Fantasy VII really improved the dialogue from previous games. Each character is now written with more personality, and as much as I loved the simplicity of previous installments, I must say that I personally prefer the fluid dialogue in FF7. And there we had 5 things I adore about the game. Now, put your seatbelt on, because I'm about to break down the game and its flaws. Starting off with the category Story and Plot. I will start off by saying, I love this game. It meant so much to me growing up, and it is a story that I keep close to my heart. However, the story has its flaws, and I will see if you can catch up on what I mean when I try to quickly summarize the story. Here it goes. Final Fantasy VII starts off with our main protagonist Cloud helping a group of eco-terrorists called Avalanche blow up a reactor pumping energy straight from the planet. The story spins on, and soon we will meet up with the two characters that will carry the plot for the game. The first of these characters is a special girl called Aerith Gainsborough. Aerith is the last of the Ancient, a special race with the ability to speak to the planet through its life force called the Lifestream, and she ties into the next major character you run into, namely the game's big bad called Sephiroth. Sephiroth is a super soldier and former hero who realized he was adopted and that his birth mom was an alien. And now he wants to destroy the Earth. To do this, Sephiroth is gonna use a special spell called Meteor, and we will try to stop him from doing so. Aerith seems to understand things that we don't, and she runs away to counter this spell with her own spell called Holy. Sephiroth don't want any of that, and he kills Aerith. But as we fight him, we realize that this wasn't even the real Sephiroth. Instead, we are fighting a Sephiroth clone. And we learn that the real Sephiroth is capsuled inside the planet and have been for the whole game. The real Sephiroth awakens shortly after and summons the meteor that will smash against the planet in the near future. We also learn that the main character Cloud is not really who he thinks he is. Apparently, he has been experimented on and injected with the same genes as Sephiroth's alien mother, as well as having his memories tempered with. If I start to lose you now, it's because the story is a mess at this point. To cut it short, Cloud manages to find his real memories as he realizes that he's not really an emotional teenager. We will take the battle to Sephiroth, who now lurks in the core of the planet. He is there blocking Aerith counterspell to Meteor, which she apparently managed to cast before she died. As we beat him, the holy spell is countering the Meteor. We can see that it's not enough though, but somehow Aerith, even though dead, controls the planet's livestream to support her own holy spell, and by doing that, saving the planet. And there we have it. If you haven't realized what I tried to say yet, it is that the game is convoluted. There is no way around it. The game does quite a good job on keeping you invested while playing, but if you stop and really start to think about what's going on, it is easy to feel very confused. So much of what happens gets kind of retconned later in the game, and it actually gets really hard to keep track on what's real and what's not. The second problem is that a lot of the story is missable. You sometimes need to have a specific party or go to certain places at the right times to trigger these moments. Usually this takes much more than one playthrough, or you need to use a guide. Another modern issue is that so much have been added through other media, as well as relating games. So if you haven't played at least Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Dirge of Cerberus, and watched Advent Children, you risk losing out while talking to any modern fan, which you might actually want to do to see clarity of the plot. Okay, with the plot and story down, let's take a look at the characters and growth. Final Fantasy VII's cast of characters are amazing, both in looks and personality. Most of the cast feel likable in their own ways, and even the stupid cat felt decent when I played the game this time around. The strength is mostly built around how the characters grow in their story, and characters will learn from their in-game experiences. Barrett goes from a mentally unstable dude to a sweetheart and a kind of a father character to the rest of the group. Tifa goes from a girl looking to get saved by her childhood love to be the one who finally saves him instead. Sid goes from a grumpy chain smoker to actually start showing emotions toward his crew and those around him. And finally, Cloud goes from an emo teen to a responsible man. And back to an emo teen again if you watch Advent Children, but that's another story. What I instead feel is lacking here is how the characters often feel left out of the main story, except for certain key moments. This will make it feel far less like a team effort and more like a Cloud solo project. Lastly, we have the final category, which is gameplay and combat. Final Fantasy VII's gameplay is actually pretty good, and I do like it a fair bit. It uses an ATB system that keeps the battle highly paced, and even if I personally prefer the all-out turn-based combat, I can really appreciate what they did here. To be fair, I cannot even imagine a slow-paced boss fight with the game's boss team. Another thing that they introduced in this game was the materia system. I will not explain how it works here, since if you watch this you most likely already know what it's about. This system is a hit or miss for most people, as it gives you the ability to give a character any skills that you want, not locking characters in specific classes. This also gives you the ability to experiment with different spells or ability combinations. My biggest issue with the materia system is that it's rough around the edges. Not all materia is parable with each other, and it forces you to spend countless of hours experimenting before you most likely get bored and use a guide instead. Another issue with not having character classes is that I sometimes feel it takes away from the character personalities. A knight in a game has learned his prowess from countless of battles and developed a way of fighting suiting his character. He didn't simply carry a stone around in his pocket, making him able to use certain techniques. The game do compensate for this by letting the characters show some personality within their limit breaks. But I definitely feel that I would have preferred the class-based, more story-related style of combat. While speaking of this, I would also like to mention that the game makes it impossible to remove the main character from the party. I can understand this from a story perspective, but since the game is also about building your party, they kind of missed a simple opportunity here. When it comes to the game's endgame, it is really good. The last 2 super bosses are good fun, and there's so much you can do to improve the materia and the characters. It does, however, require you to spend quite some time in minigames, and some may find it slightly tedious, especially when the minigames constantly trolls you. Lastly, I would like to mention the missables and the random encounters, since I think they are horrendous. What is good is that if you play the remastered version of the game, you are able to fast forward as well as turning off the encounters. This will make the game far more bearable, and it will better the experience you will have. And there we have it. Some flaws in an otherwise great game. Do you agree, or do you think I'm wrong? Maybe you feel that the story is the easiest thing to follow, and that I'm just stupid, and maybe that I even need to play more Kingdom Hearts to get smart. Maybe you prefer that the fewer characters took part of the story, making it simpler to follow. No matter what though, I appreciate that you're here, and please comment and subscribe for more content like this. And I hope to see you next time. Hej då! Oh, and here you have the best moment of the game.
Oh, I've been waiting for this one. Oh, I've been waiting so much for this. You bastard. You bastard.